Hi, superstars. This is Mrs. Logan. I can't believe we're already at week 15, and I sure hope you enjoyed last week's adventure in Yosemite, because I have one very similar to today. See if you can guess where we're going on our adventure. From these pictures, you probably guessed. We're going to go to the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is located in the state of Arizona and is about 530 miles from us in Carlsbad. The Grand Canyon is a massive 2,000 square miles, which is actually larger than the state of Rhode Island. And in some places, the canyon is over a mile deep and 10 miles across. We are looking down on the Grand Canyon, like a mile down. Look how pretty. One of the very distinctive things about the Grand Canyon are all the different colors in the layers of the rock. And all of these colors are coming from the mineral deposits that were left there as each layer was built up upon the other. The red color we see all around the canyon are mineral deposits of iron. As you look around, you can see lots of wildlife in the park. There's 450 different kinds of birds, over 90 different kinds of mammals in the Grand Canyon, almost 50 different kinds of reptiles, and there's amphibians and all sorts of insects and spiders. This pink rattlesnake is one that is found only in the Grand Canyon. Its pinkish color allows it to camouflage with the reddish walls of the canyon. Other mammals you may find are javelinas and ringtails. You might see a mountain lion or a hog-nosed skunk. You could see a mule deer or even an elk or some bison. Bighorn sheep will frequently climb on the cliffs. And of course, we've got some bats. You've even got some of the rarest birds in the world, the American condor. And when I went to bed at my first night, look what I found on the bathroom floor. Scorpion in my room. I know he looks pretty tiny compared to my finger, but I still didn't like him in my room where I was sleeping, so I collected him in a little Tupperware and put him outside. When I looked up on the internet what was the most dangerous animal in the Grand Canyon, would you believe a rock squirrel came up? More people get bitten by rock squirrels because they're trying to feed them. I definitely obeyed the signs that said, "Do not feed the animals." Looking down into the canyon makes you wonder, how in the world did this canyon get put here? Or how was it carved out? And I talked to some rangers to get some answers. This is what I learned. For a long time, geologists and scientists believed that the Grand Canyon had been forming over the past 6 million years. But most recently, they're saying it could have started as early as 70 million years ago. And the acronym that the ranger said to remember was the word DUDE. And DUDE stands for deposition, uplift, downcutting, and erosion. So deposition. It means that millions of years ago, oceans actually deposited layers and layers of different sediment in this area that now is what we call the Grand Canyon. When the oceans receded, more sand was laid down and it blew in and across the region from dunes and shorelines. And then the oceans came back in and laid down more sediment. Hard to believe that this area was underwater. But remember, we're talking about millions of years ago. Uplift stands for the process where layers of earth were pushing up on the Colorado Plateau. Remember how we talked about plate tectonics and the different layers of the crust like being pieces of a puzzle? Well, that Colorado Plateau was being pushed up from the mantle below. Now, we haven't quite talked about the big player in this big erosion of the Grand Canyon, but it's the Colorado River. And this Colorado River cut its way down through the Colorado Plateau and through all these layers of rock and sand. And it's that Colorado River, as well as other water from rain or runoff, that continues to wash away loose rocks and sand, creeps into cracks and crevices, and when the water freezes and expands, it splits rocks from steep canyon walls, and this makes the canyon continue to widen. Pretty helpful way to remember how the Grand Canyon was formed by the acronym DUDE. One thing people love to do in the Colorado River is raft. Have you ever been rafting before? It can be quite an adventure if the river is running fast. But it can also be very calm and relaxing. The Colorado River is one of the principal or main rivers that flows in the southwestern United States. It even goes into northern Mexico. The river is over 1,000 miles long. It's actually 1,450 miles long, and it drains into a large watershed that's part of 7 United States. Hi, Lego. The river actually starts in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado and flows down through the Colorado Plateau and through the Grand Canyon before reaching Lake Mead and the Hoover Dam. After it flows through there, heads south to international borders and enters into Mexico. Hi, come here. Enters into Mexico. And all the way down actually to Baja California. So we couldn't wait to explore the canyon, and our first hike was down the North Kaibab Trail. This trailhead started at 8,250 feet, and we started descending down the trail into the canyon. The very end of North Kaibab Trail is a suspension bridge that takes you across the Colorado River. Originally, that had been our hope to get to for the day, but it was a really hot day in the upper 90s at the bottom of the canyon. So we decided to enjoy our trip, and we went down about 5 miles to an area called Roaring Springs. As you go down into the canyon, you can see all the different layers of rock. It's really hard to believe that the uppermost layer of rock at the Grand Canyon actually used to be at the bottom of the ocean. The action of those plate tectonics when they lifted up and those rocks that were high and flat created the plateau through which the Colorado River would start to cut down and erode through. Look at all those different layers you can see as I'm walking down the trail. Geologists have studied all these different layers and found different combinations of sandstone and shale and limestone and these soft rocks that the water from the Colorado River and the weathering of wind and ice and rain have been able to cut through the canyon walls to create this magnificent area. We continue down the trail, and there's a lot of areas where you're kind of walking right on a cliff. This trail was built in the 1920s, so about 100 years ago. And it was built to meet the South Kaibab and the Bright Angel Trail just on the other side of the Colorado River across from the suspension bridge. After about 5 miles, we get to our destination, Roaring Springs. The elevation here is 4,600 feet, or 4,600 feet. It's time for your first challenge. So for challenge number 1, I want you to see how many feet we climbed or hiked down from the top of the trailhead, which started at 8,250 feet. And remember, we just ended up at 4,600 feet. More importantly, this math problem answers how many feet we need to climb back up to get out of the canyon. If that felt pretty easy, let's see if you can figure out the top of the north rim all the way down to the suspension bridge. Here are the different elevation levels that you start and end at. So we started at 8,250 and ended at 2,600. Share with me your answer in your Flipgrid. For our second challenge, we're going to take a close look at that river, the Colorado River, which carved out this Great Canyon. So the Colorado River has been carving away rock for the past 5 to 6 million years. But remember, the oldest rocks in the Grand Canyon are actually dated 1.8 billion years old. The oldest rocks in the Grand Canyon are actually at the very bottom, the Vishnu schist group. And the youngest rocks are at the very top, and it's called a Kaibab limestone. The Grand Canyon has so much beautiful scenery to look at. Sometimes it's hard to take time and just look at all the different layers of rock. And in this sedimentary rock, we can find a lot of fossils, marine fossils, because this area was covered by an ocean. You can find crinoids and brachiopods and sponges. There are dragonfly leaf impressions, and there are footprints of scorpions and centipedes and reptiles. The Grand Canyon has a wide and diverse variety of fossils to be found. Okay, back to our challenge. For your second challenge, I want you to make a boat out of aluminum foil. All right, superstars, for your second challenge today, I want you to get some tin foil, and I want you to get a bowl that you're going to fill with water. And you are going to make a raft to put in your bowl of water, and you're going to see how strong you can make your raft. Now, the size of aluminum foil, I want it to be about the size of a piece of paper. So, just kind of rough estimate. So, it's close to the size of a piece of paper. You can fold it any way you want. If you want to double it up, if you want to fold the edges up, whatever design you want to engineer for your raft, go for it. If you want to take out several sheets of paper so you can try different designs, awesome. Once you've made your boat, I want you to find something that you have many of, like maybe it's pennies. I've got a bunch of pennies here. Maybe you don't have a bunch of pennies. Maybe you have a bunch of quarters. Use quarters. I went in my garage and I found my husband had a bunch of nails. I could use nails. If you have a bunch of plastic spoons, you can try that too. Start with putting one penny or nail or plastic fork into your boat at a time, and see how many it takes before your boat sinks. And then maybe get another piece of aluminum foil and try to make a better boat, a stronger boat, so that it could withhold more weight. Have fun, and show me in your Flipgrid link what you made, and how strong your boat was. For our third experiment today, we are going to try to erode away some land. So the first thing we need to do is build up some different layers. Like in the Grand Canyon, there was layers of rock. We're going to build up some layers of soil, and I've got some rocks, and maybe throw in some wood chips, and then I'll throw in some more soil. Kind of just look around what you have in your backyard. If you've got some sand, you can do that. Now pat it all down. Kind of think of that ocean being on top of all this soil and land and layers. All right, to simulate water, the Colorado River, I'm going to put my hose on really, really slowly. You might need someone to help you do this. And I'm going to have it drain above the high point of my slope here, my model here. So here you see how it's on an angle going down. Everything should go down into my flower bed. And I'm going to see what happens to all the different layers here that I've built up, and see if erosion actually is forming any little canyons or any kind of valleys that I can see. All right, have fun with your erosion experiment and send me a video on Flipgrid if you decide to do this. I'd love to see what your experiment looks like. Here's the link to share your either raft activity or your erosion activity. Here's what happened after I left the hose running for about 5 minutes. So I've got a little lake forming up here at the top. You can see my rocks and bark layer down there, but all the soil has washed away. And actually I had a little landslide down here at the bottom. This whole side, this corner kind of blew out, went down, and now it seems to be draining. And I'm right down the middle now. We definitely have a little canyon forming. I hope you enjoyed today's lab, and that you get out this weekend and look around and see if you see any erosion taking place right here in Carlsbad.